Douglas in Boulder, Colorado asks, could you please discuss how the banking crisis in Europe affects U.S. banks, the American economy, and gold prices?
Well, of course, number one, the problem for U.S. banks is that many U.S. banks own the debt obligations of European banks, of European governments. Their assets on our balance sheets, banks own them. A lot of money market funds own sovereign debt in Europe. And so if there's a default or if these bonds are losing value, well, that certainly affects U.S. institutions who are holding that debt. Now, the way it affects gold is, of course, the more risk there is in the European banking sector, the more risk there is to sovereign credit in the Eurozone, the more pressure there is on the Eurozone or the ECB to print euros, to monetize a lot of this debt, to artificially stimulate the economy. That means the euro loses value, prices rise. That means more Europeans are now in the market for a hedge against inflation. Some of them might buy the Swiss franc. Others might buy gold, especially with the Swiss now trying to figure out how to undermine the appeal of the Swiss franc by maybe pegging it to the euro, which they now seem to be correctly backing away from, intervention, which they've done. The one asset where there can't be intervention is gold. Now, of course, central banks do own gold. They can sell some, but they can't print it. And I think most central banks would be foolish if they sold any of their gold. In fact, I think if a central bank were dumb enough to sell gold, there'd be some other central bank, probably in the emerging market or Asia, that would gobble it right up. So I think central banks are more likely to want to buy gold than sell it. So I think really that gold is the last safe haven standing. I just wrote an article about that recently in my newsletter at Europac Precious Metals. And of course, the U.S. economy, certainly anything that hurts the U.S. financial system, that hurts the U.S. banks, affects the U.S. economy. Certainly there could be American citizens who are holding European sovereign debt directly or through their pensions, through mutual funds. If they lose wealth because of a default or a decline in the value, then obviously that impacts the U.S. economy. And of course, we do have a lot of U.S. companies that export to Europe. They're a minority. Unfortunately, we don't have enough, but there are many U.S. companies that do earn revenue in the Eurozone, and to the extent that the European banking crisis, the European credit problems, sovereign debt problems slows down growth in the Eurozone, if Eurozone companies are buying fewer American products, then those American companies who are selling those products suffer. Their profits are diminished. Maybe they have to lay people off as a result. So there are many ways that problems in one country affect the economies in other countries because all economies are interrelated in that there is trade. And so everybody is affected. And so if Europe does well, in general, that benefits the world. And if Europe is in trouble, that will hurt the world.